Okay, question 1 from the review. Write the rule for this sequence. Come up with that generic a sub n is equal to what, right? What is that rule that I plug the numbers in to get these numbers? This one, and you know what guys, we're in honors, so I'm going to make this stuff hard on you. It's not going to be easy. It's probably a lot easier if we look from the back to the front here. You can see that we have 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 3rd, 2 squared. So naturally, I have a 2 here, right? But what would that be? That would be 2 to the 1st. This would be 2 to the 0 power, okay? Look at these numbers, 120, 24, 6, 2. These are numbers that are probably not as familiar to you as some of the powers of 2 or some of the powers of 3, right? I'll ruin the ending for you. This is 2 factorial. This is 3 factorial. This is 4 factorial. This is 5 factorial. So what should go in the bottom of this fraction? Right? 1 factorial. 1 factorial is 1. What should go on the bottom? 0 factorial. 0 factorial, let's not dilly-dally here. 0 factorial is 1, right? There's a much better explanation for it, but in the interest of time. So now when you look at this, remember what I said when we first started looking at some of these generic, non-categorized sequences. I said you see fractions, don't look at what's happening to each fraction, separate the fraction into 2 parts. And that's what we're going to do, okay? So when I look at this, I'm going to say, okay, this is what I called the first term. Now we can get crafty with this and we can say, what if I plug in the number 0, right? You can do that, okay? Or we could say this is the first term. This is the second term. This is the third term, right? This is what I get when I plug the number 1 into this equation. This is what I get when I plug the number 2. I get 2 to the 1st and a 1 and 1 factorial on the bottom. When I plug in the number 3, I get 2 squared and 2 factorial on the bottom. Okay? So what am I doing to this number every time? What am I doing to that value of n? All right, let's start again. When it was 1, I have everything on the top as a power of 2. This is 2 to the 0 and a 0 factorial. When I plug in the number 2, I have a 1 and a 1 factorial. When I plug in the 3, I have a 2 and a 2 factorial. So what am I doing to n? Every single time I have 2 to the n minus 1 power. I'm always taking 1 away from this and making that the power of 2. And then whatever I have there, I have that factorial down here. I'm just trying to get different ways of describing it. Whatever I have there, I have that factorial here. Whatever that is, I have that factorial on the bottom. Whatever the power is, I have that factorial on the bottom. So since this is the power on the bottom, I have n minus 1 factorial. Now, put a different hat on for a second. There is some allowance, should I say, for starting a sequence with 0, which makes this much easier. We could say, and this doesn't happen very often, but I'm just going to give you this idea, because we've had sums that have started with 0. We can also have, we can also have sequences. So I could say that this is the 0 term. It's the first term, I can call it the 0 term. If I did that, I could say that this is 2 to the n over n factorial instead, saying that's the 0 term. So technically speaking, both of these options are acceptable, right? This is probably a little bit better than this one. This one's trying to skirt the rules a little bit. But this still works as saying, okay, when this was the first term, I had to subtract 1 from it to get those 2 values. That's why I'm subtracting 1 here and subtracting 1 here. So, like I said, some of these nondescript, non-categorized sequences, you got to get a little crafty. You got to look at if they're fractions, how does the numerator change, how does the denominator change separately, right? And furthermore, you're going to want to recognize these factorial values. 1 factorial is 1, 2 factorial is 2, 3 factorial is 6, 4 factorial is 24, adding a little bit more to your arsenal in terms of finding these values.